my guy here because I first met him when, I don't know, it must have been 10 years ago that he published the first Slovakian edition of The Adventures of Jonathan Gullible. It was, and then he hosted us there at a big launching ceremony. Later it was produced into a play that's been circulating in the high schools in Bratislava. And then he decided, well, the teachers needed some help in putting together the course curriculum for it, so he published the commentary edition. So he's the only person who single-handedly published 2 editions of the Adventures of Jonathan Gullible. This book, which you might want to see a copy of here and even purchase one. I do happen to sell these things here. And I'm pleased to say that we didn't have a TFT last month because I just got back from the publication of the Hindi edition in New Delhi, which is the 48th language edition. They did it in English and they also did it in Bengali there. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to a guy who has long been a champion of freedom. He was telling me story after story after story in the last couple of weeks here of the incredible difference that existed under the behind the Iron Curtain when he was growing up, and but that there seems to be a hunger for the return to the Iron Curtain ways in many ways. Brano is a former member of Parliament in Bratislava, and I'm also pleased to say that his son is a student at HBU. That's the reason he's actually here. He's not here to give this talk. He's here to visit his son. But I'm very pleased to introduce you to Brano Opaterny. So,
thank you, Ken. I would hardly recognize me based on your commentary. Okay, so about 1 week ago, Ken asked me to tell you something about the question of Russian threat. So it would be very simple to say the Russian threat now is not a military one, but they simply buy our companies, buy our especially energetic companies, which means that they would keep us as a hostage of the energy. But it would be very simple because you can say, so these things happen every day. Americans buy French firms and Japanese buy, I don't know, Sweden, or Chinese buy Indian and whatever. To understand the question in its complexity, I have to make some very short historical introduction to the history of the Central European region. And that's why I asked Ken to prepare these 4 small maps. The first one, the simplest one, is from the year 1900. The second one is 1930, it means between the World War I and II. The third one is from the Cold War, and the last one is from the year 2000. If you compare the last one with the first one, you can see that it looks like broken glass. There are many small countries, many boundaries, and so in the year 1900, if you compare it with the situation after the Napoleon Wars, which was in 1812, 1815, there were practically no changes. There were 2 exceptions, unification of Italy and unification of Germany. Italy plays no role, and till now it would be maybe good only just a subject for discussions about the problems when the politician questions are prioritized before the economical. But it's another story. The German, it's much more interesting because after unification of Germany by Otto von Bismarck, the Chancellor, the Germany became a very important power in the Central European region. On the other side, there was Russia. At that time, Russia had absolutely no interest in this region. Russia was occupied by 2 big problems. The first one was the Poland, or area of Poland, because you can see that Poland was erased from the map, was split and divided between the Germany, Russia, and partially to Austrian-Hungarian Empire. And the biggest problem for Russians was Ottoman Empire. It means Turkey today. The only, let's say, living thing in process on the end of the 19th century was the area of the Balkan Peninsula, when the Ottoman Empire was pushed out from the Europe step by step, and new countries were established there. For example, Serbia, Montenegro, Bulgaria, Romania, and all these things, all these countries you can find on the next map. And this was the first point when the interests of Russia were in conflict with the interest of Austrian-Hungarian Empire. But it was also solved on the, let's say, familial level, because the dominant idea of countries at that time was not the nationality, but the belonging to the royal house of royalty. Yeah? It means the reason why you are a citizen of any country was not that you are German or Slovak or Hungarian or whatever, but you belong to the Habsburger family or Russian emperor. There were Romans, or Germans belongs to the Hohenzollern family, and so on, so on. This changed rapidly during the World War I. After year 1918, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire broke down. By the way, it was the last word was made by the American president Woodrow Wilson. He let him convinced about the right of nations to own country, and based on this declaration, many new countries were established in the Central European, from Poland on the north through the Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Austria, Slovenia, Croatia, and so on. Practically immediately they started to strive between or among them, because of, I don't know, from this point of view, from today's point of view, there were some stupidities, but at that time probably they took it as a very serious problem. For example, the problem of 20 kilometers land on the border between Poland and Czechoslovakia. There were some strife between Hungary and Czechoslovakia about the southern border. There were problems with the Romanian and Bulgarian. Every or nearly every nation or their politicians dreamed a dream about the big countries, like the Hungarians always wanted to big Hungary. Yeah, Bulgarians dreamed about the big Bulgaria, and Serbian also had some politicians, they also spoke about the big Serbia, and so this was an eternal source of conflicts. Of course, as usually, if small country has a conflict with a neighbor, always run to the so-called big brother, to someone who is more powerful, and ask him for help. During the World Wars, there was only one country, or one power or superpower, we could say, and it was France. But France never was able to manage the policy among these small countries, because they had no historical experiences, they had no knowledge about the problems, and they were focused more on the colonies in Vietnam and Africa and whatever around the world, which shown in the full during the year 1938, when they simply betrayed Czechoslovakia and signed the treatment with the Nazi Germany about the Sudetenland. It's a part of Czechoslovakia. They practically allowed Hitler to occupy the Czechoslovakia. Just two countries at that time were predestined to have a strong influence on this region. On one side, on the west, the Germany. On the east, the Russia. But between the years 1920 and 1940-50, they had big problems, big internal problems. In Germany, it was the defeated states, the defeated country. They had big problems with inflation, unemployment. They were nearly to revolution status in Bavaria. But it changed after Hitler took power, and the consolidation of Germany was surprisingly fast. It took maybe 3 or 4 years, and which was much more dangerous. Hitler's government really got a support from the citizens. On the other side of the Europe, in Russia, ran a very similar process. Of course, they first had to consolidate themselves because there was a civil war. During the Stalin's regime, there were millions of people who suffered insufficiency of foods. They were created the gulags for the political opponents. So you probably at least heard about it, and who knows more could read books, for example, from Solzhenitsyn, or there are many authors. But of course, the Russia, or both these countries, in their foreign policy, at least tried to focus also on the region in the Central Europe, because it was politically empty. There was no dominancy of any power. The Germany was the first, used the situation, partially occupied some countries, Poland, Czech Republic or Czech part of Czechoslovakia, and partially created some allies. Yeah, but there were some countries with the government. They were absolutely depending on the Berlin, Hungary, Croatia, Slovakia too. In the eastern part of Poland, they created a so-called general government, which was maybe a little more than colony. After World War II, the situation was, of course, totally changed. And Russia used the situation and practically forced the Western allies, Great Britain, United States and France, that they accepted the rule: who liberated the country, him belongs the country. And this is how practically the whole Eastern Europe became a part of Soviet Empire. Now the situation is totally different, because I'm not afraid of any military problem or military impact of the Soviet or Russian army in the Middle Europe. But there are other, let's say other tools how to get an influence on the other countries, their governments and their nations and their resources. Because methods are changing, but the political goals are the same. And now we have to focus especially on the Russia and especially on the imperial goals. after 1991, when Soviet Union broke down, in some sense we can say the history was repeated. The Russia had no power, no time and no sources, financial or other, to keep its government over the other countries, because the regime fell down. They started to, let's say, privatized, even it was more crime than privatizing, and they lost practically the whole Eastern Europe. They lost influence on the Asian countries like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan and Tajikistan and other. They lost the influence on the Baltic Sea, where the Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania are, but they never forget. As far as they consolidated the economy of the Russian state, they started to make some steps how to get the things back. Of course, first were the Asian countries. And let's say it was something similar like you can see in Israel, Land for Peace. We can support them, we can support you, but you can govern, you can rule your countries, means the elite of the countries, but on the other side, you cannot do anything against our interests in the world. So you are probably our hostage. This was very simple. If any country was against, and there is an example from the last years, was Georgia. I don't mean Georgia Atlanta, but Georgia Caucasus. And when the Georgian government tried to more cooperate with the NATO or with the Europe, the answers was very fast, very quickly, and very cruel. The Moscow simply sent the tanks there. It didn't take too long. I don't know, maybe the whole war took 1 or 2 months. But if you compare the Russian complex, industrial military complex, with the Georgia, which has maybe, I don't know, 5 million people or something like this, it's a very small country, so you can imagine the relationship. Now, of course, Georgia is pacified, and the Georgian government knows the yard when they can play. Of course, nothing like this is possible in the Europe, because all the countries, except of the countries of former Yugoslavia, became in between the member countries of the NATO and of the European Union. It gives them some level of the safety. Not absolute, but nothing absolute, but some level of safety there is. And now look at the situation in Slovakia. What is going on there? First, the biggest Russian bank, Sberbank, which is at the same time the third biggest in the Europe, bought all branches of the Volksbank in the Eastern Europe. The Volksbank built up the network of the branches in the 9 East European countries. The Sberbank bought it in the whole complex. There were branches in Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, Bulgaria. I don't know all the 9. There was, I think Serbia were between, maybe Bulgaria, I don't know. Okay, it's a business. But at the same time, the Russians started the negotiations with the owners of the Slovak energetic firms. For example, Slovak power plants. They were owned by the Italian company Enel by 66%. The negotiations are going on. There are 3 electricity distributors in the Slovak Republic. Western Slovakia, Middle Slovakia and Eastern Slovakia. 49% and all managerial rights were privatized to the two German companies and one French company, Electricité de France. The French company already declared that would like to sell this 49%. Russians immediately started to discuss about it. The same I've heard unofficially from the both other companies. Third, we have a special company for let's say the fuel of the nuclear plants, nuclear power plants, decontaminations and all these things, which is a huge money. And we had to close down one power plant by the entering to the European Union. The Slovak government would like to build up the new power plant and use by this all the non-nuclear parts of the plant. Originally, it should be done in cooperation with a Czech firm which is focused on all this industry. Now, the Czechs want to sell it to the Russians. So if you think about it, means that the main energetic companies in Slovakia, nuclear power plants, distribution and nuclear power, let's say maintenance, would be owned by Russians. They have also a bank to refinance all this operation. And what is most suspicious is all these Russian firms, the bank including, are state-owned. And now we are by the most important thing which makes us all nervous, because in the Russia still state companies are at the same time the tool for government how to press the others, or how to make the interest to the reality. You know what I mean? So the Russian government always use their companies as a tool of international foreign policy. There are many examples. One for all is a situation in the year 2009 or 2010 in the winter, when Gazprom, as the biggest Russian gas producer, was used as a tool against the Ukrainian government in winter, and it seems not to be better in a few years. The German government has or becomes more and more nervous about the situation, because they just pay and pay and pay and nothing happens. In my opinion, it's just a question of time when they lose a patience and just say, okay, my dear, pay your debts by yourself and we will make our own business. And now the point, Germany and Russia. If you look at them, they are absolutely complementary, because the Germans, what they have money, they have know-how, they have technology, they have companies, they have educated people. What are they missing? Markets, raw materials, resources. What have Russians? Money from the gas, from the oil, raw materials, resources, big market. Even the market has no money now, but it can be changed. Look at the China. If they make or if they start a narrow cooperation between the Germany and Russia, means they will rule the whole Europe. Maybe the Great Britain is some exemption, but it doesn't play a role in our. It means whatever Mrs. Merkel or the next Chancellor of Germany will negotiate with the Russian president will be valid for the whole Europe. And this is the big danger in last 25 years, I would say, since the Iron Curtain was put away. One comment to Russia more. It's my personal comment, but okay, think about it. I think that in Russia still is widely accepted the idea of the emperor. Of course, we call it the president now, but it's nothing but the emperor. There are some facts, they can prove it. For example, I know few stories about the situation how the Russian billionaires, let's say, didn't make a right social policy to their workers, yeah. And Mr. President Putin came and give the right to the workers. So the good king and bad ministers, the old legend. It's not important if it's true or not. Important is that the people believe that this schema, this structure works. So it means the citizens of Russia, of course there are some exceptions like everywhere, the citizens of Russia have no real democratic thinkings, not the libertarian, liberal thinking, or just imagine about the freedom. They always rely on the good king when whatever happens bad, they always believe that it would be good if the king would know, but the ministers don't tell him. Second big problem of Russia is that even you are a rich man, no matter the sources or no matter the way how you became, you are always totally dependent on the government. Very shortly, I would describe the situation like, okay, you can be rich, but don't make any policy. There are many very rich people like Abramovich, Khodorkovsky, Deperiska, many others. They are probably too poor to be known abroad, but too poor means billions of dollars. But only one, as far as I know, tried to create a new political party and compete with Putin. It was Khodorkovsky. His seat today is in Siberia, about 8 hours by plane, then about 6 or 7 hours by car, and has about 5 minutes every day to walk around the yard. Because he tried to make a policy.
They got him for tax evasion. So.
And this is what you have to understand if you look at the Russia as a partner or as a power in the Europe. You cannot say no simply. Yeah, it's always the old Russian structure of emperor, his boyars, knights, nobles, and workers. And now you can ask.
Yes, but that's That's the way it's always been there. There has never been any semblance of democracy or freedom. So the people there are not genetically different. It's a matter of history, things that have happened in the last 100 years. You know, the rise of communism, but they never lost. They never saw anything but extreme authority above them, always. And they still have that mindset. So when people say, well, you know, capitalism failed in Russia, well, they've never tried capitalism in Russia. It's just that one organized crime group called the Communist Party has, you know, morphed into the current political leadership, which is operating things very much the same way. There's not any, the citizens don't have any concept of democracy, self-importance as far as policy goes, like you're saying, right? And it's always been that way there. That's the culture. It's a cultural.
That's right. I read a quote sometime. Personal experiences is not transferable, which is true. I can tell you something what I experienced, but it's if you don't live in that time, you can have just more or less rough imagine what I'm talking about, and this is exactly. For example, there is a big difference. Even we also lived in socialism, or you say communism, no matter. It's a big difference between the Russians and East European countries. And this difference is in information. Because, good example, Bratislava is the capital of Slovakia. When I go to my balcony, I see about 10 kilometers Austrian borders. 20 kilometers that direction is Hungary. And about 50 kilometers far is Czech Republic. So nearly everybody had a possibility at least to watch the Austrian TV, for example. Many people speak maybe not fluency, but they understand German. Many people had some relatives or friends in Eastern Germany or Western Germany, even in the United States and so. So they got the information. The Russians not. They have no possibility to watch foreign TV or to catch the radio waves from. Yeah. For example, when I was in military service, we had for 1 year. I remember one day I was in service during the night, and I was alone, so I played with the radio, and I found a Radio Vatican. Probably I would be put to the prison when somebody caught me, but nobody was there, so about 2 hours I heard it. Then I found Radio Liberty and Radio Free Europe, and so, and I spent the time because it was nothing to do. But everybody did something similar. I had a friend, his aunt lived in Brussels, and imagine the Brussels was the capital of the NATO. Yeah, the headquarters of the NATO was in Brussels, and it's still. And he found a system, the way how to call from the military telephone, the international line, and talk to her. And he did. But the Russians had no possibilities like this. The second problem is that they have really, as you said, no historical experiences, or very small, very short historical experiences. It was during the 1917. Yeah, there was a 6 months of more or less democratic. Yeah, and then paradoxically, during the Lenin, when Lenin saw that it goes down very quickly with the economy, and they set up a so-called new economic policy, NEP, which meant that the people could have a shops, could trade with textiles, clothes, groceries, and foods, and generally, and so. In 1 year, the shops were full of everything. It was like in paradise.
To play as a role, in your opinion, in that gigantic cooperation with Germans, with Russian might really do, because they already have steps made, like the pipeline between through the Baltic Sea, like directly to Germany. I mean, they don't even bother going through Europe and St. Paul or whatever. They just make it as easy as possible for themselves. So what about China? Is there, I mean, China and Russia, they had very not very friendly relationship. However, they had communist regimes. But what do you think they will do? Because
Good.
I don't think, in this
Yeah,
potence we are right now, I mean, it's
just
very hard.
just the United States, By the way, what I told about the Woodrow Wilson, just a small comment. The main railway station in Prague still is called Wilson's Station, for the memory of the president. But last year I have read a book written by George Friedman, Next Decade, and he is some analytics or something like this. He's focused on the problems around the world. Worked for the White House, and in this book he described the effort of the United States how to keep the balance in regions of the world. For example, in the Arabic countries, in South America, and so on. And the situation in Europe, he comments with words or the term intermarum, which means in Latin between the seas. Means between the Baltic Sea, you can see it on the map, between the Baltic Sea and the Black Sea in the south. And his opinion was United States have no interest on this region except of to keep in a peace. If as far there is no war, we respect the influence of Germany or whoever to do what they want. And really, if you look at the economy of all these countries, it's hardly to find any American investor in this area. You can find the Germans, Italians, sometimes France. Yeah, many small firms that are Czech-owned or Slovak or something like this. But I know only one American company, U.S. Steel, and even this company is prepared to leave because the incentives they got from our government are finished. So that's all. That's the whole story. China, to be honest, I was never interested in the policy of China, but anyway, China is a global player, and for me it's a little bit secret how they could mix the communist thinking and the capitalist economy, because they do it somehow. Yeah? As far as I know, it's always based on the fact that if you want to do something, you have to be in a good relationship with at least the regional chief of Communist Party. If you do something bigger, you have to be in a good relationship with the Central Committee. Probably it works like this. But again, the historical experiences are very important, because the Chinese always, in the medieval, they were very good traders. They traveled a lot, they made a business, so they knew much more about the foreign countries and about the possibility how to make a business than the other. And this is probably the very important fact, important thing in this. And to be honest, I cannot see any big influence of the Chinese in the Middle Europe. Probably we are not so important for them now, because except of Chinese restaurants, they are everywhere, of course.
And warehouses in Hungary, they opened giant warehouses in Hungary, supposed to be supplying the Western Europe.
I know.
They can supply Russia. I don't know. They can supply Russia.
Yeah, but you know, yes, there are some companies which are owned by Chinese, but we have still make some difference between the Chinese and Taiwanese. Yeah, and there are Taiwanese companies, not the Chinese, not the People's Republic of China, but the Republic of China, Taipei, Taiwan. And just a moment, for the Chinese, I think in this situation, the Europe is good, or they would like to use European technologies, which is good. Example is a Volvo car company, what the Chinese company Geely bought 2 or 3 years ago, and as far as I read in the newspapers and many information, Chinese, they really only financially invest to the company. They didn't make any changes in the board of directors or any changes in the plans, what they should develop or what they should produce and so. So probably, I think, because Geely is a car manufacturer in the China, probably they want to transfer the technologies of Volvo to the China, and then at that moment they will be produced not 500,000 cars per year, but 5 million cars per year. And this is like the Korean. I remember even in the socialist era, when I saw the first Korean car, it was laughing. Even our Skoda's car, which were really vehicles, yeah, were much better than the Korean boxes. Now it's totally different. It's maybe 25, maybe 30 years. That's all. And the same history can repeat with the Chinese. Yes, there was a. What I said is that, in my opinion, not only in my opinion, this would be the best what both government could do to cooperate, because they have complementary economics. But I think there are few people, even in the German politics area, in the German government, they already got that idea. The very small example is the Nord Stream, which is a pipeline directly from the Russia through the North Sea to the Germany. And what surprising is that the member of, and I know exactly, board of directors or board of supervisors, one of these, is ex-chancellor of Germany, Mr. Schröder. So, of course, it's not evidence of what's really going on, but something says about the situation. But maybe then don't do it. I don't know. Benefit for Russians or for Germans?
Or for Europe as a whole, would benefit from the union between Germany and Russia? Is that what you're saying? Or is you saying that?
It would have a benefit for Germany and for Russia. Because, okay, let's ask another question. What benefit it would have for Spain? I would say no benefits. But who is interested in there? This is a problem, because the Germany is now more and more drawn in the problems with the South European countries. just from the last news I read in the last 2 or 3 days, the unemployment rate in Spain is about 25%. It's a huge. Among the people under 25 years, the unemployment rate in Spain is nearly 50%. Means these people never can get any experience of worker, any experience to wake up in the morning, go to the work for 8 hours and get a salary for it. France, the debt of France is nearly 100% of GDP. They say there is no time to make some savings now. We cannot save. We have to spend more to start the economy. My God, they start the economy for last 20 years, maybe more. So probably the battery is out. And what they do, so France, I mean now, they are ready to spend $20 billion to get the broadband internet to every last village in France. So I have to ask, this is really a big problem for the economy? Is it really important to give the unemployment people the chance to read the news on the broadband?
I thought usually what they use broadband for.
Yeah. But of course, the Germany is the country which has to pay for it, and Germany is not infinitesimal rich. Yeah? For example, Germany will have a big energetic problem because the cabinet of Mrs. Merkel said after something like this. Yeah, and they try to build up the solar systems and wind systems and whatever. Of course, they will import energy from the Czech Republic, which is ready to build up the new plant. Pity is that they don't want to run own, but they have no problem to import the nuclear energy. Yeah, but the estimation of costs for Germany is $1 trillion or euros. $1 trillion or euros, it doesn't matter, it's the same. Just for this area, energetic. Just because of they give up the nuclear power plants. They have closed it up, it's a huge cost to close up one power plant. They have to exchange it, the sources, energetical sources, for something else. So they have either build up the new ones, I don't know which ones, coal, brown coal, or dark, or black coal, I don't know, or wind, or solar, or what? Or a little bit louder, please.
My father works for an American company who is going to Germany and helping them with renewable energy and shutting down the power plants. And they are getting advised and incorporated with American countries who are very, I would say, not Russian friendly in an economic sense. So the union between Russia and Germany seems a little bit far, I guess, in that sense.
Maybe I'm wrong, yeah, could be. But related to the energy, I've studied nuclear physics. I was awarded, so I think I did a good job at the university. And I can tell you, no other system is better than the classical nuclear power plant. And of course it's dangerous, it's whatever you want, but you cannot exchange it, but you cannot replace it, but any solar system or any wind system or any similar, just simple. Because if you take today the best products on the solar energy market to cover the needs of the European Union, would means that you have to cover 3 times bigger land than the France and Germany together. because the effectivity, because of clouds, because of it gets weaker and weaker every year because it's older, these panels, and so on and so on. And every energetic system which uses wind energy or solar energy has to be secured by the classical source of power, because the network has to be kept on some voltage, on some output. And you cannot risk that the windmill will stop because of the weather, because the network would be break down. It would be black out like it was in 70s somewhere, or in 90s in California. Even the reasons were different, but the result is the same. So nevertheless, you have to have classical power sources.
One thing that I wanted him to tell you about was this new law that he read about in Slovakia. I think that would be a nice thing to finish up on. What was this new law that the government just offered this week?
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like a joke. Yeah. You know, there is some process of creating of the laws, and the first step is the government has to approve it. Then it goes to parliament, and then the president signs it, and it is published. Now we are only in the first step. The government 2 or 3 days ago approved a new law. The new law says that if any big firm negotiates some conditions for the workers with the trade unions, it's automatically valid and obliged for the small firms in the same industry sector. There are some exceptions. The firms have to have more than 20 employees. They have to be older than 2 years and so on. But generally, this is the principle. Which means, for example, when Volkswagen, as a big firm with a huge incentives from the government, make a negotiating and with the trade union, the workers have a right to get, let's say, 6 weeks of holidays. Automatically, if you are producers of wires for the automotive industry, you have to give 6 weeks of holidays to your workers, even in the case they don't want it. The law is law.
Well, I think we're going to now go to the dessert. I welcome you to have continued discussion among yourselves and with Brano. And I want to thank Brano for making his presentation tonight. Thank you very much.